and what the narrative was building around Dan Hurley, I thought the Lakers were all in. I really did. I thought the Los Angeles Lakers were all in. And I know this offer would have made him one of the 6 highest paid coaches in the NBA, but 6 years, $70 million isn't enough for Dan Hurley to take that job. When you'd have to move your entire family, even when there's questions about your fit in the NBA, and when you're in a situation right now that is a great situation with the UConn Huskies. You know, when I first started to speculate on what the number would be, I thought it would be about $80 million. That's what I thought that offer was going to be. I thought it would be an $80 million contract, and I believe I said $80 million over 6 years. Because that $80 million over 6 years would be $13.3 million. Had to take out the calculator there for a second. That would be kind of Monty Williams money. But then John Fanta, who joined us and will join us later, others in the media too, were talking about there was $100 million offered to him. And if that was true, which it ended up not because it's 6 years, $70 million, according to Woj, and who knows all the specifics. But if the Lakers were serious, they would have offered him a $100 million contract. They would have made an offer he couldn't refuse. And if you offered him $100 million over 6 years, and that's $16.6 million a year, yeah, that's an offer you don't refuse. That's a serious offer from the Los Angeles Lakers. But what they offered him is something to consider. What they offered him is something to think about. But what they offered him is not enough for Dan Hurley to say goodbye to Storrs, Connecticut, and hello to Los Angeles. So yes, it's good for UConn. Yes, it's good for college basketball. But the Lakers, even though I question the fit of Dan Hurley, we all know he's a great coach. But going from college to the NBA isn't easy. But if he was truly your guy, what you were leaking to Woj, and this was your target, you needed to give him a better offer. And the Lakers dropped the ball on that. The Lakers did not give you an offer, give Dan Hurley an offer that was an offer you couldn't refuse. And he turned you down. So now, where do the Lakers go from here? Oh, boy. You know, James Borrego is a fine coach. He's still in the running for this job. But when you go from Dan Hurley to maybe James Borrego, even if Borrego ends up being a good coach, right away, you're not winning the press conference, and you're going to get slammed publicly. The former Hornets coach, right, who knows Greg Popovich and worked for Greg Popovich for all those years. So that's a tough sell on James Borrego. But who else are you going to get? Like, now everyone turns their attention back to Shams, who said at the beginning of last week they were targeting J.J. Redick. Oh, boy. You're really going to bring in J.J. Redick, who has zero coaching experience. He's never been an NBA coach. That's the move that you're going to make. That's the guy that's going to be your next head coach. It's like you went from the penthouse and now you're used to a certain style of living, and now you're settling for a 2-star, a 2.5-star resort. J.J. Redick should not be coaching Los Angeles Lakers next year. But if you maybe make a guess right now, it's probably either going to be, with the reporting, Borrego or Redick. And you have to think LeBron's fingerprints, even though everyone in the media keeps on saying, LeBron's letting the Lakers decide. LeBron is giving the Lakers the power to choose. He's saying, don't make this decision with me in mind. Make it for your future. But if it ends up being Redick, isn't it pretty obvious that that's a LeBron decision? And that's a move to entice LeBron James, who really, you know, it's weird to say LeBron doesn't have leverage. And I don't want to go that way. But does anyone actually believe LeBron that there's a scenario out there where he's going to leave the Lakers in this offseason? Like, from a common sense standpoint, he should go to Philly. And he should team up with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. But that's not going to happen. He's going to stay in L.A., and they'll probably draft his son. And now you go back to it's probably going to be J.J. Redick. And that is a major letdown for the Los Angeles Fakers if it ends up being J.J. Redick. Because they tried to sell you Hurley was the guy. Hurley was the top target. Hurley was going to be the next coach of the Lakers if he wanted the job. And I get it. Hurley turned him down. But that offer, 6 years, $70 million, isn't a serious of enough of an offer for Dan Hurley to leave a blue blood in UConn. To leave a spot where right now he's king. He doesn't have to answer to NBA players, and he just won back-to-back national championships. That offer needed to be $90, $95, $100 million. And reportedly, even though it's still a top 6 offer for an NBA coach, and it would be a top 6 salary, it's only 6 years, $70 million. That's not enough for Dan Hurley to say goodbye to UConn. And that's where the Los Angeles Lakers dropped the ball. If you are going to get into the ring with Dan Hurley, if you're going to court the services of Dan Hurley, make Dan Hurley an offer he couldn't refuse. Instead, you didn't make, even if it's dressed up and reported like Woj, like it's a strong offer, and you're putting lipstick on a pig. In reality, that offer was not strong enough. The Lakers right now are in a very, very, very dreary spot. They are. You know LeBron's coming back. That's fine. Anthony Davis is still on the team. That's fine. But who's going to be coaching this team? Who's going to be the next guy? And they tried to sell their fans or put it out there. We're trying everything in our power to get Hurley. And the optics of it, from going from Hurley to Borrego or Redick, yikes. And it's also not good for Lakers fans when the Boston Celtics, you have to pour some more salt in the wound, are 2 wins away from banner 18. You know, I follow a lot of the stupidity on social media. Lakers fans last night were like, oh, we're upstaging the Celtics who are about to win a championship by going out there and hiring Dan Hurley. Wah, wah, wah. Here you are today with no Dan Hurley, and now having to settle for J.J. Redick or James Borrego. Must be humbling for J.J. Redick. You weren't option A. You were option B. And quite frankly, if I'm being honest, I hope Borrego says no. And then Redick is option C. I don't think much humbles J.J. Redick. I don't. But if J.J. Redick is the coach of the Lakers deserve what they're going to get for the next few years, because I don't believe J.J. is going to be a good coach in the NBA, especially with the Los Angeles Lakers. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. My, oh my. Some news to start the show, as according to Adrian Wojnarowski a little while ago, the Lakers offered Dan Hurley a 6-year, $70 million. And he said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm staying at UConn. 855-212-4227. Let me take one right here off the bat. Mo in San Diego, first up on the Zach Gelb Show. Mo, what's shaking?
Zach, you know I love you, man. I love you like a play cousin. So I'm not going to sit here and argue with you too much about this. Mm-hmm. I just disagree with a couple of your thoughts.
Okay.
Obviously, some of the things you said make a lot of sense when it comes to, what the negotiations were. But this is how I see it, okay? And I'll just follow what you said. You said that wasn't quite a good enough offer based on showing that you really want them, okay? But that wasn't an embarrassment of an offer at all. And you said it yourself. There are some unknowns with Dan Hurley. He's not a given here. So he has some proving to do, and this is still the Lakers. So,
well, the Lakers right now are going to have to settle for Borrego or Redick.
Well,
I'd rather deal with the unknowns than having to settle for those two. And I like Borrego.
No,
I don't like Redick, to be clear.
And I understand that, but at the same time, the other thing is, if Dan really wanted the job, he could have negotiated up and asked for more money too. This isn't like a one-shot deal. If he wanted it, at some point, the Lakers want to know that Dan wants to coach, and at some point, you got to know you want it. This wasn't a situation where if I want this job, this isn't enough money for me to do it. He could have came back and said, I really, really want it, but I'm moving to L.A., sweeten the deal, and I'm all over it. No, if you don't want it, stay in Connecticut, bro. It's all good. We'll be okay. We'll figure it out.
Are you guys going to be okay?
I mean, are we worse than any other franchise? You asked me, would you rather be in the Lakers franchise or Charlotte? We're okay. We'll be fine.
Oh, God, come on. That's not apples to apples. Like, that's a pretty low standard. If the Los Angeles Lakers, the great Los Angeles Lakers, you were a fan of them saying, oh, at least we're not Charlotte.
Yeah, but I'm just using that as an example. But tell me what franchise you're saying, oh, yeah, rather be them than the
Celtics.
Lakers. It ain't that many of them, sir. It's just not. And we're okay. We're going through the process. But my point is this. We shot high. It didn't work out. We offered him a really, really competitive
But
salary,
now you're settling really low. You know what you got? You know what the Lakers are like right now, Mo? The Lakers are like when I go to Vegas or Atlantic City, I'm at the blackjack table, and I'm up like $1,000. I should walk away. But guess what? I don't walk away, and then I walk out of the casino losing money. That's what the Lakers are doing right now. They shot high. They were up. They couldn't close the deal. They didn't walk away. They didn't get their guy. And now there's a chance they maybe only walk away with like $50 or $100 on who they end up hiring.
But if Dan wanted the job, he didn't want it. That's my opinion. At $70 million, if you really wanted the job and you wanted to sweeten it up and leverage it, okay, great. I get that. Get yourself some more money.
But it's not a good enough offer, especially, and thanks for the phone call, Mo. Always appreciate the insight. But when Kentucky offered him reportedly $11 million a year, and he said no to that, your offer to him is 11.6. You want him to take you seriously. You got to give a more serious offer because he had to make that decision quickly. And if you're starting there, you're not going to get to the Godfather offer. And Hurley had all the leverage because Hurley was comfortable. He was in a good spot. The guy wants to be a coach of the NBA one day. That's clear. He's talked about that. He's been on the record about that. That doesn't entice him. He wasn't dying to go now, but in the right move, he could have gone there. The Lakers could have been the right move. But when it's only $70 million over 6 years, it may look like it's good for an NBA salary coaching-wise, top six, all that stuff. But for Dan Hurley, you had to go higher than that. Coming on back, it is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network. It is the Zach Gelb Show. Antoine Walker will join us coming up 55 minutes from now. John Fanta will come your way at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Two biggest stories of the day. We will sprinkle a bunch of other things in as well. Dan Hurley says thanks, but no thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers only offered him a 6-year, $70 million contract. He is staying with the UConn Huskies. And think about the Big East, by the way, which to me is my favorite conference in college basketball. The last few years, just in the coaching department, you had Shaka Smart get hired by Marquette. Jay Wright shockingly retires. Sean Miller returns to Xavier. Thad Matta returns to Butler. Ed Cooley, that clown, bolts Providence for Georgetown. Providence ends up getting Kim English. Rick Pitino goes to St. John's. And yes, the cherry on top of the sundae, Dan Hurley just turned down the Los Angeles Lakers. The Big East is freaking crazy, and it's awesome. And there was a time where we thought the Big East was on life support. Clearly, they have not only survived, they continued to soar really high. We saw what Villanova was able to do, winning 2 championships with Jay Wright. We just got to see what UConn has been able to continue going back-to-back national champions. But for so many years, when you look at the rich tradition of the Big East, and really in college sports, the coaches define the conferences. The coaches define the sport. And from a personality standpoint and from a storyline standpoint, this new Big East has continued. And really the last few years, the coaching storylines have been wild and sensational to watch. But I got to get to the Boston Celtics. And I got to give an abundance of praise to the Boston Celtics right out of the gate. It was wild to me in the long layoff that we had from the conference finals to the NBA finals, how it felt like a lot of people that we talked to and a lot of people that were giving their opinions on national radio shows and TV shows were adamant that the Dallas Mavericks were going to win this series. And I asked myself this: could I see Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who was the best duo remaining in the playoffs, could I see those two, with Boston having the home court advantage, could I see those two 4 times in a 7-game series, both having four efforts where they both scored 30-plus points in a game? Because that's how the Mavs can win. You need Luka to go off, you need Kyrie to go off, and do what they did in that closeout game up against Minnesota, where both scored 36. And I heard a lot of people say, oh, Dallas is the better team. And I'm like, I know it was popular to kind of not praise and not give words of extolment to the Celtics. All they've done has just win and win and win this year, because there was this feeling that the Celtics would ultimately let you down, because that's what just happened in recent years. But I didn't understand this notion that the Mavericks were the better team. There's a reason I picked the Celtics in 6, because I thought the Celtics were a tremendous defensive team. And even though the Celtics didn't have the best dynamic duo in this series, they're just a more complete team. And you look at it last night, and really in the first 2 games of this series, Jason Tatum, from a point production standpoint, has not been good. But then you have Kristaps Porzingis in game 1 make his triumphant return. Plays great. Was their best player. Victory. Last night, Drew Holiday was the Celtics' best player. Had a great performance. They won game 2. Derek White was good last night. Jaylen Brown has been really good through the first 2 games of this series. You could just go on and on and on with how good the Celtics are. And even in a game where Jason Tatum didn't play great and he was 6 of 22 from the field, but he was still able to give you 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists. So I look at the Celtics. I know they only played 3 guys off the bench, but I still think they're a better team than what the Mavs have to offer. And now I look at this series and I try to figure out, is there a way that the Mavs can get back into this series? Yeah, Dallas has to win 3 and 4. If this is 3-1, the Boston, I know Kyrie Irving was a part of the legendary 3-1 comeback with LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers going up against the Golden State Warriors. But if this series gets to 3-1, it's over. Turn out the lights. Fat Lady will be singing. This series is over if it gets to 3-1. And that's the thing. I got to ask myself right now, with Jason Tatum not having a great point production yet in this series, is he going to continue to go cold in games 3 and 4? Like, I got to think Jason Tatum is going to give you in games 3 or 4 a 28, a 30, a 32-point performance. So I do believe that the Celtics are going to split in Dallas, and they'll go back home to Boston for game 5, and they'll be up 3-1. But the Celtics did not even play a great game last night. They even got sloppy at the end, and trust me, I had Celtics minus 6.5. I thought I was going to cruise to that, and then it started to get a little bit close. And we know that the Celtics ended up winning the game last night by 7 points. But Dallas last night, I was thoroughly disappointed in them. Because if you go back and you look through where the storylines were after the first quarter and then also the first half, it felt like Dallas should have been up after the first quarter. They were only up by 3. It felt like they should have been up by a lot more. And then at halftime, it felt like Dallas should have been up and the Celtics were up by 3. You know, Jason Tatum last night, and you had no clue if you were watching the game. Because J.J. Redick and Doris Burke, man, I know Van Gundy and Jackson is a high standard. And eventually in the second quarter, J.J. Redick and Doris Burke started to acknowledge that Jason Tatum had 0 points. But were they ever going to say that in the first quarter? Tatum had 0 points in the first quarter. The Celtics had 1 3-pointer in the first quarter, and Dallas only had a 3-point lead. It felt like Dallas, who did not shoot the ball well last night, should have been up by more when you were watching the first quarter. And then at halftime, Luka had a great first half. He had 23 points in the first half. 23. Tatum only had 5 points at halftime. The Celtics were 3 of 15 from 3 in the first half. Celtics led by 3. And I know that a 3-point lead in the NBA isn't safe. But when you were on the road and the Celtics were begging you to beat them and begging you for the Celtics to have a Game 2 letdown, Dallas did not rise up to the occasion. And I can't crush Luka Doncic. I know people say, oh, he disappeared in the fourth quarter. The dude is clearly hurt. It's been well reported. He's suffering more injuries. The brace and everything last night. But is Kyrie Irving going to show a pulse? And, I'll tell you when I'm right. I'll tell you when I'm wrong. I was dead right. I was 1,000% right. Spot on with Kyrie Irving after his Game 1 performance. That guy tried to issue a fugazi mea culpa before the start of this series. And then after Game 1, when he was a no-show, he's like, oh, the crowd, I thought they were going to be a little bit louder. Well, if you couldn't deal with it when you thought that was a tame Boston crowd, what makes you think you're going to be able to deal with it when the crowd actually got louder? And the crowd was loud in Game 1. And then the longtime voice of the Celtics who just recently retired, Mike Gorman, who was sitting in the 8th row, he shared that story how Kyrie and a fan were going at it in the middle of the game of Game 1. That told me everything Kyrie was trying to sell you was a bunch of BS. That's what it was. And then in Game 2, the crowd chanting Kyrie sucks and all that jazz. Kyrie makes what we thought was a 3. It ends up being a 2. He gives like a gesture to the crowd. And what did he really do after that? He was irrelevant in the game last night. So Kyrie's got to step up, and Kyrie has to be sensational in Games 3 and 4. But I don't think he's going to give you 4 sensational efforts matched by 4 sensational efforts at the same time by Luka Doncic, where the two of them both pop up off for 30-plus points in the same game, because that's how they win. And Luka showed up last night. The rest of the team did not. And I know you could sit here and say, Zach, why don't you talk about the other guys? Because Kyrie Irving, when he is locked in, is a top 10 player in the league. Kyrie Irving has the finals experience. Kyrie Irving made one of the baddest shots in the history of the NBA in the NBA Finals in Game 7. And a guy that is going back to Boston did squat in the first 2 games. I think Boston's going to find a way to go up 3-1. I think I originally Boston in 6. I hope that this still at least goes 6 games. I would love it to go 7, but it's starting to feel like this is going to be Boston in 5. Because the Celtics did not even play great in the first 2 games. Their defense was great. And Kyrie was under duress all last night. So give the Celtics credit to that. But offensively, the Celtics still not had a great game in this series yet. But that's what championship teams do. That's what great teams do. When they don't play their best, they still find a way to win. And here we have Boston sitting up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll come on back. We will update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. But first up, standing by with the latest Infinity Sports Network update is the great Crystal Presti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance. So by all accounts, Dan Hurley has turned down the 6-year, $70 million offer from the Lakers to become their next head coach. Instead, he will remain at UConn and chase a 3rd straight national championship. ESPN reports Hurley had a new offer in hand from UConn before opening his talks with the Lakers. It would make him one of the highest-paid NCAA coaches, and those talks are expected to continue now that he has made his decision to stay. Meantime, the guy Hurley would have replaced with the Lakers, Darvin Ham, reportedly heading back to Milwaukee to join Doc Rivers' staff with the Bucks. More coaching news, Mike Tomlin, now the NFL's longest tenured coach, gets a 3-year extension from the Steelers, carrying through the 2027 season. He's entering his 18th year with the Steelers and is yet to post a losing record. Veteran tight end Mercedes Lewis continuing his career for a 19th season. He's re-signed with the Bears. He turned 40 May 19th and makes him the second oldest active player in the league behind only Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers. And Stanley Cup final game number 2 on the way this evening. Edmonton in an early hole despite outshooting Florida 32-17 in Saturday night's opener. A 3-0 shutout for the Panthers. Face off tonight shortly after 8 Eastern. I'm Chris Lopresti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Check out our new and improved website at infinitysportsnet.com. That's infinitysportsnet.com.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network. It is the Zach Gelb Show. We are rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We will be joined coming up at 4:20 p.m. Eastern by Antoine Walker. And at 5 p.m. Eastern, John Fanta will continue to react to the two biggest stories. Obviously, the Celtics being up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. And then Dan Hurley saying thanks but no thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers, as he's going to stay with the UConn Huskies. It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INFSportsNet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I'll get to a news brief in just a second, but first, the Dan Hurley thing, just one more note on this as we give you the initial reaction here in the first hour as he turned down the Lakers' 6-year, $70 million offer to stay at UConn. Could you have imagined with how long this played out, even though it was only a few days? But he interviews with them over the weekend, and he flies back in, or interviews with them on Friday, flies back in on Saturday, goes to Billy Joel at the Garden on Saturday. Then, nothing on Sunday. We are supposed to hear that on Monday, by noon, we would get something. Practice was to be at noon. They then push it back to 2. Could you have imagined if he met with the team and told them he was taking the job? I know UConn's a blue blood. I know, right? He's the face of the sport. I know he's won 2 championships back-to-back, and I was someone... I believed that he was going to take the job. When we left on Friday, I thought he was going to take the job. I did. But then today, when it's playing out before the show started, someone asked me, do I think he's going to take it? And I go, it would be a really rotten move. Like, there's no good way to leave, even when you win back-to-back championships, and even when you're the face of that program. And, hey, it's the Lakers, right? It's an NBA job. There's no good way to leave. But if you would have dragged us through the entire day, had your kids waiting for you to practice, pushed back practice for 2 hours, and then said, guys, I'm leaving, that would have been a really bad look and a bad optic scenario for Dan Hurley. Like, Lakers fans would have been rejoicing. Lakers fans fell in love. They were in love with Dan Hurley. They thought they were going to get him. The UConn fan obviously would have been disappointed that he left, but if they would have dragged him through the entire day and left the kids basically at the altar, hey, I'm going to take the job after keep on pushing back practice throughout the day. From a human standpoint, it would have been just, and I know there's no good way to leave. These coaches never look good when they leave, but it would have been a brutal look for one Danny Hurley. Even though I think through time there would be some understanding, but with how this was playing out and the longer it was waiting, it was like, man, the longer this goes on and the longer he keeps these kids guessing what's going to happen, and until he dresses that team and this news gets out publicly, you started to think, okay, maybe he is going to stay, because everything you hear about Dan Hurley, even though he's quirky and he's demanding, and he's going to go about things his right way, you have to have somewhat of a heart. Like, you tell your team right at 11:30, news gets out at 12 before practice, okay. But either two things are going to happen. One, he tells his team he's coming back, it's a party at practice. Two, you tell your team you're leaving, and it turns into like a sports funeral. That practice is going to get canceled. So that would have been a brutal look for Dan Hurley if he left the way that it went out throughout the day, or went down throughout the day. All righty, let's update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief right now.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
So I guess last night there was a minor incident at the Celtics game where I don't know if it was a big deal, but I guess Luka Doncic and Wyc Grousbeck, the owner of the Celtics, or the governor of the Celtics, let me get the correct term in there, had a little back and forth. Here is Luka Doncic on the trash talk with the Celtics owner.
Luka, it looked like you had an interaction with this Celtics owner. Did he do something or say something that you thought was over the line?
I'm sorry, I don't know who's the Celtics owner.
Was there somebody in the first row that you were having an exchange with that was the Celtics owner?
No.
See, I'm trying to think if that's actually true. Like, I'm not saying Luka Doncic needs to know who the Celtics owner is, but you would think he would. But Samter, I guess Wyc Grousbeck said some things to him. He said some things back. Guys sitting courtside, and look how many people could sit courtside as it is. Does Luka in the moment, like maybe he knows who Wyc is if it wasn't in that high heated moment, but in the moment, do you actually buy him that he had no clue, or is that him just kind of dissing the Celtics owner?
Put the Celtics owner in a lineup with the owner of 6 other NBA teams, I would have no idea. There's like 5 owners who I know what they look like. Yeah. Like Mark Cuban, James Dolan. What?
Wyc I would, just because of how much the Celtics have been there before.
Sure, but like, honestly, I saw a picture of Wyc, and I was like, all right, I probably wouldn't have in the heat of the moment.
Maybe you should watch the games a little bit more intently. Maybe you should be a better observer.
I'm not paying attention to the Celtics owner on the sideline court as much.
I will say, though, most owners in the NBA, you have no clue what they look like. You don't. I feel like football, we know what the owners look like. Major League Baseball, not really. Basketball, not really. Hockey, no chance. So you're probably more right on that statement. Here is Kyrie Irving. 2 no-shows for Kyrie in the NBA Finals. He makes it clear now they got to win at home.
You want to take advantage of playing in front of your home crowd, feeling confident, and being able to play in a familiar place. And like I said, they handled what they were supposed to do first 2 games, and now it's our job to go home and handle our business.
Yeah, it's nice of you to say, but I kind of hate that saying. You're not in danger of losing a series until you drop one on your home court. That always bugs me. This team's down 2-0, and the guy that has the most experience playing for that team in the NBA Finals has been irrelevant in this series. Sure, credit Boston's defense, right? Boston's defense has been sensational, but we're talking about Kyrie Irving, who's a top 10 player in the sport. I get it. Boston has Derek White. They got Drew Holiday. They got Jaylen Brown, but you're Kyrie Irving. And the only way I could chalk it up to outside of defense is, and the numbers are the numbers. He can't beat Boston to save his life now. I think it's like 11 or 12 straight games that they've lost to the Celtics. So, Kyrie. But when he gets in that building, he just can't find a way to block out the crowd. He can't. And I think that's a big part of it as well. When you look at these first 2 games and him no-showing, he's trying to fight the crowd. He's trying to battle up against the crowd. That's when you lose. Because you got to just ignore them, and you got to shut them up and play great, and he's not been able to do that. Caitlin Clark left off the Team USA roster for the Olympics. Here's her reaction to it.
I'm excited for the girls that are on the team. I know it's the most competitive team in the world, and I know it could have gone either way of me being on the team, me not being on the team. So, I'm excited for them. I'm going to be rooting them on to win gold. I was a kid that grew up watching the Olympics. So, it'll be fun to watch them.
What was your level of disappointment not hearing your name on the roster?
Honestly, no disappointment. Like, I think it just gives you something to work for. It's a dream. Hopefully one day I can be there. And I think it's just a little more motivation. You remember that. And, hopefully in 4 years, when 4 years comes back around, I can be there.
Hopefully you could be there in 4 years. You should be there this year. I'll give you more on that coming up in about 8 minutes right here on the Infinity Sports Network, and why it's a wrong decision by the powers that be that decide Caitlin Clark's roster status on Team USA and why they messed up. What I will say, though, I love she's like, hopefully I can make it. She says everything correctly. For someone that is under that much of a spotlight, it's actually wild that she always says the right thing and never slips up with how much extra attention is on her. It's surreal. She handles it perfectly. And I will say, like, Caitlin Clark, she should teach, like, athletes how to handle the press. Because, she had to be disappointed. And she said she wasn't, because she always gives the right answer and comes off very classy. Here's Christy Sides, her head coach, on her conversation with Caitlin after the Team USA snub.
We talked actually on the bus. She got the call on the bus, and she texted me to let me know. And, I just tried to keep her spirits. I mean, the thing she said was, hey, Coach, they woke a monster, which I thought was awesome.
A little bit more truthful when you get to talk to Coach and not PR Caitlin Clark. Finally, here's Dak Prescott on the urgency to win to get a bigger deal.
This is the urgency you should always have, to be honest. So maybe guys who normally wouldn't feel it. So I don't mind it. Been in this position before. I'm a gambling man. We'll gamble on myself and my guys. So not actually, guys. I understand. I understand there's been a lot of shit with that. So not that way. Just a high. So.
Ipe Mezahara is on line one.
Suspended for 2 games.
Yeah, claiming to be friends of Dak Prescott. I had a lot of Dodgers fans. There was a lot of Dodger fans right next to my apartment this weekend. Crazy. They were all staying at the hotel right next to my apartment. They all came in with suitcases Friday afternoon and Friday evening, and they were all getting off a bus. It was like a big fan trip, and I just screamed at one of them, in a nice way. And I was going to get my coffee and my protein bar, my peanut butter protein bar, when they were just walking in with these big suitcases. That all the cash where Ohtani keeps his gambling funds, and we had a good little laugh with the Dodger fans who did overtake Yankee Stadium, as the Dodgers did take 2 out of 3 from the Yanks this past weekend at the big ballpark in the Bronx. All righty, that's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, Caitlin Clark left off Team USA's roster, why it's a missed opportunity for women's basketball. We'll tell you more next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, here we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. Antoine Walker will stop by 20 minutes from now. I'm sure he's in a good mood today as the Boston Celtics are up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. And John Fanta will join us an hour from now as we'll get his insight on Dan Hurley saying thanks but no thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers on a 6-year offer worth $70 million. I know people will say that's a respectable offer and the Lakers tried. I say nonsense. Dan Hurley is in a great situation. Dan Hurley is royalty in college basketball right now. The NBA will always be there for him if he wants it, and he does want it. He's made that clear before. So him talking to the Lakers is one thing. But if you seriously want him to be your head coach, you got to make him an offer better than $70 million over 6 years. Like, if that was for a first-time coach, oh, it's an outrageous offer. It's unbelievable. It's sensational. I get it. He would be a first-time NBA head coach. But with a coach that accomplished in college basketball and is very comfortable where he's at, he didn't have to leave. And when Monty Williams, right, that was the framework I used going back to last week. You got to offer him at least $13, $14 million a year because that's what Monty Williams makes to coach the Pistons. And Monty Williams, we know, got the Suns to an NBA Finals, then got fired. But to get Danny Hurley to go from UConn to the pros, and I don't know if he would have succeeded. And I questioned if he was a fit in the pros, but the Lakers wanted him. The Lakers said they wanted him. They, through Woj, said he was their number one target. Then they needed to make him an offer that bare minimum started with a 9, right? They needed it to be 90. They needed it to be 95. some reported, like John Fanta, that he was hearing it was a $100 million offer. That if Hurley turned that down, then that's one thing. But the fact it was only $70 million over 6 years, like you're telling me, sure, it's a top 6 offer. You could present it like it was a good offer, but I see through that. As the kids would say, man, I don't think I'm old enough to say, as the kids could say. I don't. But I call cap on that. I do. I don't think that was an offer that Dan Hurley seriously needed to mull over. And that's a thing, too, Samter, as well. It's like as the day did go on, like I'm fine with you meet with them on Friday, you wrap things up Saturday, you fly back, you go spend the night out at Billy Joel, you take Saturday, Sunday to talk it over, but by Monday, you got to make a decision. And I'm sure he felt one way last night, and you want to sleep on it. And obviously now we know that decision was to stay. But when you start to delay, I'm going to tell everyone at 12, and then it gets pushed back to 2, my antenna just went up. Because Dan Hurley isn't an idiot. He's obviously a smart man, and there's a reason why he's reached to this level of stardom in his profession. But the two things that are in play here is, one, it benefits him if he's staying to let this story linger because it's more attention and more focus and more of a talking point of UConn dominating the news. But here's the other thing. If the Lakers, and let's say if he told the Lakers yesterday, hey, I'm not taking the job, the Lakers would have already started their spin on this. So he literally kept the Lakers in the dark until some point today and then informed them of the decision, and then it got out. That's how this went down. But he was smart to take the moment and keep people waiting. But if he would have kept people waiting and then go to the pros, that would have been a bad look for Dan Hurley.
And honestly, I wasn't as concerned about the few-hour delay because I just figured, listen, you're making a life decision.
But it made no sense.
Yeah, but I mean,
he wasn't still mulling over the offer at that point, in my opinion. I don't buy that.
I don't think he was mulling over the offer per se, but I think, listen, when you're making a life decision, you don't want to be like, he's giving himself a noon deadline, right? It wasn't like the Lakers you have to tell us by noon. He just gave a noon deadline.
Well, because his kids had practice at noon. They were supposed to.
But when you're making a life decision, maybe something else comes up, or there's another conversation you have to have, or maybe you want to talk to your dad about something else. You want to talk to Bobby out in Arizona about something else. 2 hours. Listen, if he waited 2 days, different story. 2 hours, not the end of the world. It didn't really bother me that much. But, I don't know. Listen, I'm not judging the guy. Whatever relationship you have with your wife and your family, great. But if you really want to coach the Lakers, coach the Lakers. Your brother is in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And I know that, happy life is important, happiness is important, and you want your wife and your kids to be happy, all that. But, if your dream is to coach the Lakers and you're turning it down because your wife doesn't like Los Angeles, I feel like that's a tough pill to swallow.
And also, the offer wasn't good enough.
No, it wasn't a great offer, but it was a good enough offer, especially for a guy who we can tell hates the portal. He's losing 3 of his biggest stars, right? Klingon, they're saying, might even go number 1.
But they still have a good team next year.
Yes, but if they don't three-peat, they're not really expected to three-peat because they're losing so many players. But if they don't three-peat, it's a disappointment for him.
Sure.
I get this.
But no one's going to crush him for not three-peating.
No, but if you miss out on a dream job because you're trying to three-peat with the team that is a long shot to three-peat, it's a tough pill to swallow if he falls short.
I don't...
If he's bringing back his whole roster and Klingon is staying...
So two totally different things. Here's the bottom line. The Lakers didn't make him a good enough offer. From what I'm told, and I don't know if it's out there or not, but 2 people that I trust that are very much in the know, what they told me what the offer was to Hurley, and I'm talking about the UConn offer to Hurley, what the Lakers offered him isn't enough. It isn't enough to make him say for a job where he was happy at, I got to take that. I got to go move across country, and I got to go coach the Lakers. It's just not. The Lakers needed to make him a better offer. They needed to make him an offer he couldn't refuse, and they failed to do that. Now, let's get to Caitlin Clark. I vehemently disagree with Team USA's decision to leave her off the roster. I'm not saying any of the women that are on the roster don't belong. But where we are with women's basketball, which is in a positive, great spot, it is. We have talked about in a national format more about women's basketball in the last year and a half than we probably have in the history of this network. That's not me putting down women's basketball. It's just the reality of the situation. But right now, Caitlin Clark is not only the most popular player in women's basketball, but she is one of the more popular players in all of sports. Her individual brand is so big. It is so huge. And as women's basketball continues to grow and continues to hopefully have a spot where we're talking about it a lot, I think it's just a bad business decision to not put Caitlin Clark on Team USA. And don't tell me, well, she's a rookie, she doesn't belong. We've seen rookies before, people in college before, make these teams. Go to the men's team all those years ago with Christian Laettner. So with Caitlin Clark, there's not a player on the roster that I look at and say, wow, that person has to be off and she definitely has to be on it. That's not what I'm saying. But in terms of will you get me to watch? In terms of what's best for the sport, Team USA with women's basketball, they dropped the ball. And I'll give credit to Samter for this. When I did praise a lot of the women in the NCAA tournament, from Juju Watkins to Paige Beckers to Angel Reese to Caitlin Clark and so on, Samter was the one who said, Caitlin Clark is the person that gets you to watch. Now, all those other ladies that I mentioned, you can develop a newfound respect for them. You can talk about them in a glowing way, but the reason you got to watch them, for most of us, is because we were interested in Caitlin Clark, and then it sparks other interest, and it's a domino effect. But I would have probably said to Samter, he's wrong on this, because I remember Samter said something along the lines of, if Caitlin Clark gets eliminated, he's not going to watch the rest of the women's tournament. And I was like, hold on, there's some other really good players there that give you a reason to watch. But where I'll say Samter is right on this, like the women's basketball for the Olympics, and I'm not a big Olympics guy. I'm not. I love the swimming with Phelps for all those years. For some reason, I kind of like the Winter Olympics more than the Summer Olympics. I don't get all crazy and delirious over the men's basketball team. But when it comes to the women's game, because of the individual stardom of Caitlin Clark, and I don't know what her minutes would have been, and she would have been coming off the bench, to be clear. But am I going to go out of my way and take my time? And trust me, I have a lot of time to go watch the women's chase a gold medal with Caitlin Clark not being in the mix? I'm just being transparent. I'm not. You put Caitlin Clark on that team, I'm absolutely watching. But now that she's not on that team, it doesn't pique my interest in terms of me tuning in. And they don't need her. They'll win gold. They won't lose a game in all likelihood. Heck, since 1996, the women's basketball team is 54-0 with 7 gold medals in the Olympics. 7. 54-0 and 7 gold medals. So they'll survive without her. But it seems like a missed opportunity for women's basketball because there's so many of us that have fallen in love with Caitlin Clark that we just want to see her play more. And when you're on such a big stage like the Olympics, her not being there, even though there's better players than her right now on that team, it doesn't make me say, okay, I'm going to go out of my way to find the Olympics and find Team USA and watch. But if she was involved in it, I absolutely would. So, Samter, that's where I'm kind of at on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I get it. I look at it as a situation where it's kind of like it's the difference between, like, if you're looking at like an article, what's more important, being right in the article and having good information, or like being clickbait. Having Caitlin Clark on the team is clickbait, but it doesn't necessarily mean
she's deserving.
Well, is she?
Yes.
I mean,
she's the best player in college basketball last 2 years.
In college basketball,
yeah.
But we're talking about the WNBA and the pros. There are these other players who have earned their way onto the team, and Caitlin she's within that conversation. Sure, I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve it all, but these are other players who have done more in their careers, at least professionally, than Caitlin Clark has. So they've put in that, they've earned that in a different kind of way. I agree that she probably should be on the team because it's close enough that you can at least make an argument that she belongs. But here's the other part of it. She's beyond the team, and she's going to get 3 to 5 to 6 minutes a game.
Well, that we don't know.
She's not going to get a lot of minutes. She's going to be the last person on the bench, and she's going to get in the game at the end, and people are going to be pissed. So then you have that part of it, too. Do you put her on the team just to be...
Well, she still may make the team because of injuries.
Sure.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I know how great of a player she is, but Chelsea Gray and that situation, it's okay. Will she be ready in time? So there's a chance, because she's currently out with the injury for the Las Vegas Aces. There's a chance she still may get on the team. But this is just one of those scenarios where it's like, can you turn your microphone if you don't mind? I hear the typing and it's distracting me. It's just one of those scenarios where you have an opportunity right now where you're getting more eyeballs on your sport than ever before. An unprecedented amount of eyeballs. And the reason why people are tuning in, I'm not saying there aren't other great players, because there are, is because of Caitlin Clark. And whether she would have got 15 minutes or she would have got 2 minutes, having her a part of the team will pique a lot more people's interest to tune in and continue to grow the game rather than not putting her on the team, even if she only got 2 or 3 minutes.
So that's the thing is, are you still watching? Like, maybe that first game you're going to watch because, like, I want to see. But if after, like, 2 or 3 games she's only getting 4 or 5 minutes towards the end of a blowout game, are you still watching to watch that last 4 minutes of Caitlin Clark in a 30-point game against Latvia?
It still has my interest. I'm still captivated because she's a part of the story. Her not being a part of the story, they'll still win a gold medal. They still won't lose a game. But in terms of viewership, it's going to hurt in a big way. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Celtics are up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. Do the Mavs have any hope? And what are the Celtics doing so well up against Kyrie Irving? We'll talk to former Celtic Antoine Walker when we continue in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Continues on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network. Zach Gelb Show. We're here with you on a Monday. I was watching a video that I guess happened a day or two ago. Maybe it was walking around Boston. I don't know if he was at the games or not. I know NBA on TNT is no more for the rest of the season and has what we think 1 year left. But Charles Barkley was walking around and he was walking past I guess a Mavs fan who's like a streamer and someone that just like harasses people just to get clicks and all that stuff. And this fan yelled, "You are Michael Jordan's son. Imagine not winning an NBA championship." Like yelling at Charles Barkley. And Barkley got heat a little bit. And some people are like, oh, you know, Barkley should have just kept on walking instead of like entertaining this guy. Quite frankly, I thought Charles Barkley should have punched this punk's ass. Like, I'm not even kidding. I think he should have just knocked this kid out, whoever was yelling these things. Like, think about how disrespectful that is. You know, it's one thing to have an opinion, and it's one thing to give a take, but here's Charles Barkley just walking around, and he's got to deal with someone running up to him and yelling right in his face, "Oh, you never won a championship?" And clearly it's just someone that was trying to get a video and get a bunch of views. But that's a scenario that was at hand. So I would have had no problem with Charles Barkley beating the crap out of that person that was just yelling at him. Antoine Walker is going to join us coming up in just a second. I see he just popped into the Zoom, so we'll bring him up in just a moment as the Boston Celtics are up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. And this series is going to shift back to Dallas coming up on Wednesday. And we'll see if this starts to become a series. And Dallas has to win these next two. And if Dallas does not win these next two, and this series gets to 3-1, I don't see a way that Boston loses this series. And I still don't think Boston has played their best yet in this series. And they're still up 2-0. And there were moments last night, especially in the first half, where Boston was kind of begging for Dallas to go win the game. And still at halftime, the Celtics were able to have a 3-point lead. Now joining us, former Boston Celtic. He, of course, is Antoine Walker with the C's up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. Antoine, always great to have you on. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
I've been good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. So, through the first two games of this series, just what has been your biggest takeaway when you look at the Boston Celtics?
I think it's the depth. I think when you look at the depth of the Boston Celtics, they 7, 8 deep and get great production from those guys. The depth is starting to wear on them. And we talk about the stars of this series. You talk about Kyrie and Luka, and then we'll talk about Jason and obviously Jalen. But to me, for the Celtics, just early after 2 games, Holiday has to be the MVP of this series. He's been terrific. A guy they traded for, made a big move, gave him extension. He's been the difference maker. And even you can go back to game 1, another guy they traded for in Porzingis. Those guys have been the difference makers this time around with the Celtics being in the finals. And with those 2 guys, and then obviously we know Derek White's been a rock all year long. So the Celtics, I think, are just much deeper, and the others are playing really, really well. You hear Shaq say this all the time about the others. When you look at the Celtics others, they're the ones that's making the difference.
And I think a big credit has to go to Brad Stevens. I know for a lot of us, Brad Stevens may be out of sight, out of mind just because he's not coaching the team. But you talked about it. Getting Kristaps Porzingis and trading away a fan favorite and Marcus Smart. You also, in that deal, got 2 first-round picks, and one of those picks were used to go get Drew Holiday. Brad Stevens, who was good as a coach, he's been pressing all the right buttons as of late ever since becoming the president of basketball operations.
Oh, without question. They got a window. And I think one thing, if you look at Brad, obviously I'm not in the war room, but they got 2 young talent stars in Jalen and Jason. And let's do everything to put the right pieces around them and see if we can win us a couple championships. Came up short, obviously, against a veteran team in Golden State a couple years ago. But now I think it's the doors open for them. And I know they still got a job to do this series, but to be in the finals for the next 3-4 years and get themselves a chance to win another title or multiple titles. And I think that's what Brad Stevens has done. He set up this team to be very good for the next 3 to 5 years and have a chance to win legitimate titles.
Antoine Walker here with us. The defense, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but Kyrie Irving has done nothing through the first 2 games of the series. I know Luka showed up in a big way, had 23 points in the first half last night. What are you seeing right now out of the Celtics defenders up against Kyrie Irving?
Well, we don't talk about it enough. The Celtics have multiple defenders. We don't talk about how great a defender Holiday and Derek White are. Both of those guys are elite defenders. Jaylen Brown came in this league as an elite defender. He made his name being elite, and obviously his offensive game has grown over the years. And then Al Horford has been a great defender, especially when he's younger in his career. So they just have multiple guys that can guard. This is a different series than what Dallas has seen coming from the Minnesota series. They don't have 2 7-footers that necessarily are not mobile and that can't move. The Celtics can switch 1 through 5. Al Horford can stay in front of a Luka Doncic. So you got different matchups. And I think because the Celtics won so much this year and they were so great offensively, we forget how good they are defensively. And we're seeing that now in the finals.
Talking to Antoine Walker right now. So I don't want to take away from what they're doing defensively because they've been sensational defensively. But Kyrie Irving going back to Boston the last 2, clearly that building has been a house of horrors for him ever since he left the Boston Celtics. How much does that maybe impact a player where, sure, Boston's been great defensively, but it seems like Kyrie's a little bit more focused with the fans rather than the task at hand on the court?
It's tough there. It's tough sometimes for to be a Boston Celtic and if you don't play great. they're going to really get on top of you. This is the diehard fan base. They're going to make it really tough on them. Obviously, the situation him leaving was not great, so they're gonna be on him. They're going to give him a hard time. I mean, I feel for him. He probably can't even go to dinner. I mean, let's think about the off the court too. I mean, he probably don't even feel comfortable going to dinner, so he's basically in a hotel for 4 or 5 days, where he can't even go out and enjoy the city a little bit and even get a good meal. He probably doesn't want to go out. I think it plays a part. It can start to wear on you as a player. We all are human. We all go through these things. So I think being at home, I'm expecting to see a better Kyrie Irving game 3 or 4 because being at home and being in front of his home crowd. But I feel for him. It's a tough situation. I mean, it's something that you got to deal with. It didn't work out well in Boston, and fans in Boston are really diehard fans, and, they love their Celtics. So they're going to get out there. It's all in the fun of competition. I'm glad nothing's happened besides nothing but booing. You know what I mean? That's what we want to keep it at.
It's one thing to play better when you get home, and I think it'll be better. You can't really get worse than what happened the last 2 games, but will be better enough to then take both games 3 and 4. Like, I kind of go into these next 2 games thinking Boston's going to find a way to split.
Yeah, I had the Celtics in 5. That was my prediction early on. Luka and Kyrie are 2 outstanding, great stars in this league. You got to figure they're gonna figure it out. Jason Kidd's a great coach. They'll figure out a way to get one. I just think Boston from top to bottom are a much better team. I think, you gotta, when you think about the contributions and things of that nature, who can be that 3rd, 4th guy for Dallas? And I think they role players have played particularly well. I mean, we had to look at the first 2 games. Kyrie hasn't been great, obviously. I mean, Luka has put some numbers up, but the 8 turnovers hurt last night. So your stars have to be stars, but you also need your role players to step up and somebody else to be that 3rd or 4th guy. It'll be interesting to see if a P.J. Washington or somebody can step up.
You said something earlier that I 100% agree with, that the Celtics are the better team. There were a lot of people, though, from the conversation I heard, and I get it. We had a long layoff in the conference finals to the NBA finals, so people are looking to just say things. But it seemed like a lot of people were not only picking the Mavericks, but they thought the Mavericks were the better team. Is it just that Boston, since they've been close and haven't got the job done, people weren't believing they would get the job done? Because this team has been pretty much flawless the entire year with the record they've been putting out.
Well, I think people probably maybe didn't understand how good the Celtics were. I mean, you would think with their record and having the best record, people understand this team was really, really good. But also the experience factor. You got to think their 2 best players been in the finals and had disappointment. These 2 young stars, so they got to, they want to rebound. They want to make sure that they play well. You bring in a guy like Holiday, an NBA champion who's been there before. He's ready for this moment. You got Al Horford, a guy that's hungry, who's never been in this moment. He's played in a ton of meaningful games. He's got a chance to get him a title in his career. Porzingis, who's been another guy who's got a chip on his shoulder. The Dallas Mavericks traded him. You forgot about that. They traded him, and obviously you got to think about now he's in a situation. So the Celtics have a lot of great storylines. Mazzulla's been there before as a head coach. He learned from his mistakes. The Celtics are built for this moment. They made the right moves. They made the right decisions, and their 2 stars are ready for this moment.
Wrap it up with Antoine Walker, who joins us right now. Celtics up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. Tatum has not gone off in the point production department. I know he had double-digit assists last night, and he was 6 of 22 from the field. That's another thing why I keep on liking Boston in this series. Boston has played fine. They played good. They're up 2-0. I think, though, they could get to another gear. How about what you expect out of Tatum in Game 3?
He's been great. He's done what he had to do to help the team win. Obviously, you want efficient. You would love for him to be a little bit more efficient on the offensive end, but that's a stat line he had. That means that he's not concerned with just scoring the basketball. When he's able to rebound and assist and continue to play, that speaks volumes. That speaks maturity. That speaks a guy that's been in this moment before, and he's played in a ton of meaningful games, knowing that because of the team that Brad Stevens has built around him, he don't have to get 35 for them to win. He don't have to get 40. It's a difference. You look at a team with Luke and Kyrie, I don't know if they can win a game without Luka and Kyrie both maybe coming up with 70. You know what I mean? Where this team, the Celtics team, was built different. And that's why Brad Stevens got Executive of the Year, because he put pieces around these 2 young stars so that when they have a bad game, You got other guys that will step in and make sure that they take care of business. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the depth of the Celtics play a big part in this series. And just wait. Jason Tatum is going to have one of them moments. He's going to have one of them games. It could be game 3, maybe game 4. You don't know when it's coming, but he's going to have one of those moments where he has a monster game. And that doesn't sit well for the Dallas Mavericks.
What did you make of Kidd's comments, Jason Kidd's comments after game 1, saying that Jaylen Brown is the Celtics' best player? Was that a little bit of some mind games, or do you think that's just Jay Kidd's honest opinion?
I think if these guys were in their first and second year, but these two guys have been together for a long time now, and they've played in so many meaningful games. They're not focused on that. If they hadn't been to the finals before, if they haven't played the Golden State team, they've been to wars. They're young. They've had a lot of success early on. I don't mind Jason Kidd doing it. You know, anything you could do to try to help your team, maybe get a little edge in that nature, it's cool. It's good for the tablet. Like you said, we had a bunch of days off. You can start thinking of a bunch of stuff to try to think about. But honestly, top to bottom, you're talking about the Mavs. Mavs had a good season. They didn't have a great season. They're 6th seed. They were 6th seed. They have 2 stars. You're playing against the best team in the NBA. And the Celtics are showing that. The Celtics are showing why they're the best team in the NBA. And matchups are everything. And I'll say this before we go. Everybody don't understand. It's a bad matchup for the Dallas Mavericks. The Celtics have multiple guys they can put on them, on both of your stars. They're not limited in their position. They play small. They can play small. They can play big. And they're deeper. It's happened sometimes. Playoffs are about matchups. Sometimes you just don't match up well with a team, and you need a lot of things to go your way. And unfortunately, the Celtics are healthy now. They have full strength. They can play a lot of different ways, a lot of different lineups, and just a bad matchup for the Dallas Mavericks.
Antoine Walker, let me just get your thoughts on Dan Hurley. Passed up the Lakers offer, 6 years, $70 million, is going to stay at UConn. When you saw that today after the long wait, as we were all waiting that news, what was your reaction?
I thought he made the right decision. When you look at the Lakers roster and where they're at right now, LeBron's going to be 40. AD, he's in his prime, but you don't have the third guy. D'Angelo Russell's going to free agency. You don't know if he may opt out. He may become a free agent. It's just the roster's not good enough for him to leave UConn when you think about it. It's just not. He's got an opportunity to make history, to win to three-peat, a legitimate chance. He's done a terrific job there. And guess what? In 2 years from now, I still believe an opportunity to go in the NBA will still be there for him. I don't think he has to jump at this. I think he'll still be there because he'll still be coaching and his teams will be playing at a high level. He'll be competing for championships. I don't think he has to jump at this. It's just tough because of the Lakers. And we understand the organization and the history that they have and being able to coach the Lakers team. And obviously to be able to coach LeBron. But you're not coaching LeBron at 25. I don't know how excited I'm going to be to coach LeBron at 40, even though he's playing at a very high level. But I just think it's different. And he's also, too, Rick Pitino came, and I'll say this last thing. Rick Pitino came in and took over in Boston. And we all know the success he had at the collegiate level.
Sure.
It's tough, man. This is a players' league. This is a players' league. And if you're not willing to understand that it's a players' league, then you kind of stay in the college ranks where you still have a little control. It's your program. You still kind of control things. In the NBA, you have to bow down to the players. It's the players' league. And I don't necessarily know if some of the great college coaches want to do that. They like to stay in a position where they run the program and they're able to develop. But when you get in the league, it's a players' league. And I think Hurley looked at that because he's looking at LeBron and AD. You know, everything, he's got to sit down with them every day and see if they want to practice, see how we want to do the schedule. You know what I mean? It's a lot of things that he has to do in the NBA that he don't have to do in college. And I think he's making the right decision for himself.
Last thing I'll ask you, Antoine Walker. Calipari now at Arkansas. Your guy, Mark Pope, is now the head coach of your Wildcats. Just how about how all that played out since we haven't talked to you in a while? I'm happy for both sides. Cal has been nothing but great to me in his tenure at Kentucky as far as allowing me to be back, taking care of me, making me still feel a part of the program. So I have a lot of respect for Cal. And I also got to add, my best friend is one of the assistant coaches too, Ron Coleman on the staff. So I have a lot of respect for Cal. I've got to know him personally, and through my best friend, I know how much a great guy he is. So I'm happy for Cal.
But I'm also happy for Mark Pope. Obviously, been playing 2 years with Mark and knowing Mark real well. He'll do a good job. It'll be a little different. It won't be the same as Cal. He probably won't be able to get every big-time 5-star guy. But he'll compete. He's going to work hard. He'll put a productive and competitive product on the floor. And eventually he'll have a chance to make a deep run in the tournament. He'll be that. And with the transfer portal, anything has happened because you can put together a team in a transfer portal. So I'm happy for both guys. Excited for Mark getting the opportunity to go back to Kentucky and to coach at his alma mater is something special. Looking forward to see him do that. But I'm also happy for Cal that he gets an opportunity to coach. But like I said, my best friend is on that staff, and so I root for those guys just as much.
Antoine, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, my man.
All right, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, there you go. Antoine Walker joining us on the Zach Gelb Show. Always enjoy our conversations with him as we get his thoughts on Kyrie Irving and what has happened the first 2 games in Boston with that series. Now shifting back to Dallas with the Celtics up 2-0. And obviously the big news of the day, Danny Hurley saying thanks but no thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers, going to be staying at UConn. All right, we'll come on back. Mike Tomlin got a 3-year extension. What's kind of the state of the Steelers right now? We still believing in Mike Tomlin. Update time for our series, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Chris Presti.
I'll take the compliment.
Hey, at least I didn't say
like
CBS Sports Radio, you know?
You know, you win some, you lose some. And you did mention Dan Hurley turning down the Lakers, the 6-year, $70 million contract offer to head west for the NBA. Instead, he does choose to stay at UConn and pursue a 3rd consecutive national championship with the Huskies after he get flown to L.A. Flirted with the Lakers a bit late last week and through the weekend. Some more coaching news. Zach mentioned as well Mike Tomlin, now the NFL's longest tenured coach. He gets a 3-year extension from the Steelers carrying through the 2027 season, entering his 18th year with the organization, yet to post a losing record. Stanley Cup final, game number 2 between the Panthers and the Oilers. A 3-0 shutout for the Cats in Saturday night's opener, largely thanks to Sergei Bobrovsky's effort between the pipes. Here's Florida head coach Paul Maurice.
That's truly the advantage for us of having a guy that's seen it all at this point in his career. He's had quiet times. He's had very, very busy nights, and he's clearly capable of operating at a high level in both.
32 saves in Game 1. Tonight face-off shortly after 8 Eastern. One other note from the NFL, veteran tight end Mercedes Lewis continuing his career for a 19th season, re-signing with the Bears. I'm Chris Lopresti.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is, play Infinity Sports Network. That's it. Play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Samter just brought something up during the break that's a very big development and a good point. And I did see this yesterday when it was published. I did not watch the entire thing. I just watched like a little clip of it. Our favorite hockey fan, the Oilers girl who showed parts of herself to people when she was celebrating at a watch party when the Oilers scored a goal or won the game up against the Dallas Stars in that crazy Game 5, which was in Dallas, and she was obviously in Edmonton at the Oilers watch party. She has been found. The identity was not revealed of this person for a long time, but Spitting Chicklets, right, hockey podcast, sensational hockey podcast through Barstool, they got in contact with her and they brought her on their show. And Samter, I think the funniest thing is she had no problem showing a lot of her in that moment. And maybe she didn't think it was going to go as viral as it was. And maybe I can't speak for herself. I didn't watch the entire thing. You have a few drinks. You're having fun. You do something in your seats that you don't think you'll become like the most obsessed thing when it comes to hockey for a little bit. But when she went on the podcast yesterday, she, I think, had a sweatshirt on. And not only had a sweatshirt on, she had these enormous sunglasses. So you could barely see her face. So 2 things. One, And I want to just make this clear. I did not watch the entire clip. I only watched when they brought her on and surprised everyone on the show. Number one, is that actually the lady? And number two, it's so funny when we know so much about what and how you look that when you go on, you don't really want the attention, even though you're doing the interview, and you have these big sunglasses to try to hide your face when everyone already saw her face and a lot more, Samter.
Yeah, so I watched a little bit more of the interview. She does take off her glasses.
Oh, she does?
She does.
Okay.
Is it the real person? Sure, maybe. There's no way to verify it.
So you watched more than I did. I just saw the one clip where they brought her on. How much did you watch the interview around?
About 2 minutes, 3 minutes or so, something along those lines.
So you didn't leave the 2 or 3 minutes thinking that's definitely her.
I mean, the way she was speaking, it sounded like it definitely could have been her. She said that it initially was on, then she had it removed, and then somehow it got back on, and that's when it went viral. So the first time that it was there, apparently...
Like on social media,
on social media, nobody paid any attention to it. Yeah. It wasn't until they went to the cup that people started taking notice. There was one other moment, and I was trying to find the clip that I can play it, but I wasn't able to get it in time. But they straight up asked her the very important question.
Can I guess what the question is?
Yeah.
Well, does it have to do something with that New York Post article? That there were certain websites that were trying to find out who she was because they wanted her services? No, it's not that? Okay.
Nope. Think Seinfeld.
Are they real and spectacular?
So they asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Her answer might surprise you. She said, no, they are not real.
Really?
Is what she said.
Wow. That's actually stunning. I thought for sure those were real. I did. I was very careful with my wording there. Just wanted to make sure that I said that in an appropriate manner and reflecting Infinity Sports Network in the best of my ability. But have you seen the other video, just wondering? Sully sent this to me, our good friend Sully, which I don't know if I should be saying this on the air, but everyone has seen this video. There was a hype video. I guess a few years ago, a model went to a Florida Panthers game, and she was sitting right on the glass, and she did something very similar to what the Oilers fan did. Now, those did not look real. I thought for sure the Oilers gal, her tatas, is that? Yeah, I guess that's what we'll go with. I thought for sure those were real. So that was actually a conversation I had with someone in my family when the video first happened, and they said, "Oh yeah, those are definitely real." And they thought because she was leaning back a little bit, maybe they looked bigger than what they actually were, and that was a heated conversation that myself and my father were having. So anyway, wow, that's a stunning development, Samter. I'm going to sound like Mraz for a second when he said I'm stunned to a news, when he said that on the DA show. That is a stunning piece of information.
Here it is in her own voice.
Oh, you have it? Okay, let's listen up.
Are they real? I think that's one other question that a lot of people had. Is that a rude question to ask?
No, they are not real.
Wow. That's actually kind of flattering, right?
I mean, we all thought they were real.
Oh, I thought 100% they were real. No, she kind of seemed disgusted that they even asked. Like, how dare you think those are real? Play that one more time, Chris Hess. Give me that clip one more time.
Are they real? I think that's one other question that a lot of people had. Is that a rude question to ask?
No, they are not real.
It's a weird noise at the end.
She was laughing, but I had to cut out some of the laughing because they were all talking over.
Everyone was cackling.
Yeah, cackling and yackling.
It's a good guest spot. I will watch the Stanley Cup final tonight with the Panthers going up against the Oilers. And the Oilers, they dominated the Panthers in game one from a shot production. But Bobrovsky was just spectacular and kind of felt like a lot of times how the Panthers looked up against my Rangers with the way the Oilers are playing, except the Panthers ended up winning the game. And I like the Panthers to win that series. Anyway, Mike Tomlin gets a 3-year extension. We'll get more into this conversation in just a bit. I think the interesting part, just to kind of set it up before we get to John Fanta, who's going to join us coming up in 8 minutes, is the approach here by the Steelers. Like, I think if I don't want to say, I can't speak for everyone, but I do think there is a strong contingent of Steeler fans that are tired with Mike Tomlin. And I think Mike Tomlin is a top 10 coach in the league. You know, he's right in that top 5 conversation. You can make a case for it. But the Steelers' standard is to be Super Bowl or bust. The Steelers have not had a Super Bowl or bust feel to them in quite some time. And since 2016, that regular season, that year, the 2016 football season, that was the last time the Steelers ended up winning a game in the postseason. So no playoff victories in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then 24. None of them. That's kind of crazy. That when you go through all those postseason years, they have not had, and I know they haven't always made the playoffs, and there's been some years where they've been above 500 and they just don't get in, but to not have a playoff victory since the 2016 regular season, I could understand, even though we all acknowledge Tomlin's a really good coach, the Steelers were like, yeah, we got to move in a different direction. But I respect what the Steelers are doing because of this. A lot of times you have a really good coach, and you get rid of that really good coach, and Tom will be a Hall of Famer. You get rid of that coach, and then you're never able to find someone that could come close to that coach again. And I understand why some Steelers fans are like, oh, we got to try something new because you haven't won a playoff game since 2016. That's not the standard for the Steelers. But the Steelers organization has only had 3 coaches. You know, when you look at Noel and you look at Cowher, and then obviously you look at Tomlin, and that's going back since 1969. They're saying, we're going to continue to trust our guy. We're going to continue not only trust our guy, give him another extension, a 3-year extension. And we don't want to see what life is like without him. But you got to start winning playoff games, or a playoff game, if you're Mike Tomlin, because it's expected that you win another Super Bowl with the Steelers.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go. Hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You know, there's not every day where the 3 hours of a show is basically just 1 or 2 topics, but today is one of those days. And the 2 topics that we have really discussed in almost every segment has been Dan Hurley turning down the Los Angeles Lakers to stay with the UConn Huskies. It ended up being a 6-year, $70 million offer, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. I don't think that was nearly enough for Dan to take it, even though it would have made him a top 6 highest paid coach in the sport. And he says, thanks, but no thanks, and he stays at UConn. And then the other story is the Boston Celtics are up 2-0 in the NBA Finals, and you'll have Game 3 coming up later this week on Wednesday evening. And the Celtics didn't even play a great game last night, and it was still better for them to control the tempo of the game in the second half and get that victory to take a lead in this series of 2-0 up against the Dallas Mavericks. And Kyrie Irving did not really show up in the first 2 games of this series, and there was so much about him and the fans, and I think the fans got to him. And I would have anticipated a better effort and a better performance by Kyrie Irving. You know, going home, do I think Luka and Kyrie will get on the same page and they'll both drop 30-plus points in a game and they'll win 1 game? Yeah, I do. Do I think they're going to both win games 3 and 4? No, I don't. And I think this is going to go back to Boston with Boston up 3-1 and having an opportunity to close it out in Game 5. But let's get back into the Dan Hurley news, which is he's staying with UConn, and he said thanks but no thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers. John Fanta has been all over this. Does a great job, play-by-play insider for Fox, and he's once again kind enough to join us. He had a lot of good stuff with us on Friday, and John Fanta joins us once again on the Zach Gelb Show. John, appreciate it. How you been, my man?
Zach, I'm doing well. It's great to be with you. As I talked to you seconds ago, UConn has put out official statements from Dan Hurley and David Bendix. If you want me to give you those statements here right off the bat, Hurley saying, I am humbled by this entire experience. At the end of the day, I'm extremely proud of the championship culture we've built at Connecticut. We met as a team before today's workout. Our focus right now is on getting better this summer and connecting as a team as we continue to pursue championships. UConn AD Dave Benedict saying that they are thrilled by Hurley's decision and grateful for his loyalty. He says in a statement, as we navigate the rapidly evolving college athletics landscape, I think it's interesting that he said this, Zach, your donations more than ever will be necessary to sustain our success. The continued financial commitment from loyal and new donors to both departmental operations and NIL activities will be paramount to remaining competitive on the national stage. That's really interesting language as I join you for a release that's sent right off of a coach, recommitting to his school, to the place that he's been at, because as UConn tries to get this deal done with Dan Hurley, he does not have a new contract that's signed and done. It's going to be interesting to see how that process goes, because earlier, before Hurley said he was staying at UConn, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont told reporters that it is their goal to make Hurley the highest paid coach in college basketball, that he would like to do that. Well, this past November, two-time national champion Hall of Famer Bill Self signed a 5-year, $53 million deal with the first season, 2023-24, this past year. Self got paid $13 million. So Lamont said that publicly. Hurley stays. Now, Benedict makes a note to donors in a public release. Now the question for UConn and Connecticut is going to be, how are they going to be able to reach the point where they give Hurley the deal that he deserves, the deal that he would like?
It's a good point, and we haven't talked about his contract. So they obviously made him a very respectable offer from what has been out there, and he didn't take it. And then the Lakers stuff comes out, and a lot of us are thinking, maybe he's going to take the Lakers job. How long of a process do you think this is going to be? Because when you turned down the Lakers deal, which was reportedly for Woj $70 million over 6 years, it makes you think that, okay, he was just going to take what was out there from UConn, but you're saying this could be a little bit of a longer process than what people would assume.
Well, I think it's been a longer process already than what anybody would assume. I mean, it's surprising to begin with. Take the Lakers aside, that we'd be talking right now on June 10th, and the head coach of the back-to-back national champions and the school wouldn't have that done. But Zach, I think that there's a couple of things to look at with these variables here that went into this decision. Because Friday I came on your show and told you what I was talking with sources on good authority about. And I'll say this, sources that I still trust very much.
Sure.
Dan Hurley was given a very nice offer by the Lakers. It was not $100 million. It was $70 million. In this process, I'll admit it. Nobody wants to admit it. You're not going to bat 1,000 because you're going through a bunch of people for a bunch of different pieces of information. Now, who's to say that if Hurley started to win, it couldn't get there? But that point stands. I think as you're going throughout the weekend, Zach, this did not come without serious thought and serious deliberation from Dan and his wife, Andrea. And the first step of that was, it's really hard to stop the ball from rolling when you make the decision to fly all the way out to the West Coast and to meet with those people Friday night, which he did. And I was told that those meetings, those talks went very well. And Adrian Wojnarowski reported that last night as well publicly on the Finals pregame show, that those talks went very well. At the end of the day, I think what this comes down to is what we're also discussing with the contract, Zach. Dan Hurley in Los Angeles would be going into the job still not fully knowing the answer, because you don't know it until you get into it, of how much control would he really have? How much control would he really have? Whereas in Storrs, Connecticut, he has all of the control in the world and has the unlimited power to just get the governor of the state to say, we'll make him the highest paid college coach at a school that doesn't have football money. Not the football money that the big-time football schools have where they're in conferences. So I think at the end of the day, you don't mess with Happy. You take what you're going to get. You've built a top 5 roster. You convinced Alex Caravan to come back for this venture. I think that personal relationship really did play a factor in this. And he has achieved college basketball nirvana. And Zach, he will continue to be the face of college basketball for the foreseeable future. You and I both know, in the NBA, coaches are not the faces. The players are.
John Fanta here with us. When you get into the control part of it, and you talked about how he would still not know how much control he would have, when that came up in conversations, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not with how connected you are. What was Rob Pelinka, what was Jeannie Buss saying about the control part of it?
Yeah, I'll be candid here. I don't know what exactly was said there, so I'm not gonna guess on that. I think that's a question that hopefully Dan answers. I could tell you right now, Zach. For what it's worth, Dan Hurley's going to get on a plane and he's going to fly to MBPA camp and he's going to do some recruiting over the next 2 days. And then he is going to see the media on Thursday. So he's going to do media on Thursday. What I could promise you is I'm going to make the drive from New Jersey to Connecticut and get as many more answers on this subject as we can, because I think that's a really important element to this. And I think it's the type of thing that doesn't come out right away. But it's my understanding fully that those conversations were intense and interest from both sides and very healthy and very productive. It just wasn't meant to be in the here and now. And I think that, Zach, one of the things is that, the Lakers have had 6 different head coaches since Phil Jackson, none of which have lasted more than 3 years. And, I think that weighed on Dan, even though, I think he went through people are saying to me, I can't do it in the NBA. He sees the noise. He hears the noise. He sees what's out there. He's fueled by proving people wrong. And he's only 51. That day may come. And I still think that that's more than on the table. You're telling me that if the New York Knicks didn't open and had a little bit of interest and maybe a lot of bit of interest in him, what if he wins a 3rd straight? Then at that point, what else does he have to do? But I think that it came down to those elements of he was motivated by that, but he looked at the situation that the Lakers were in, an organization that, because of the LeBron James, Anthony Davis contract situation, Zach, you look at the rest of that roster, there's a whole lot of unknowns, and it's not a championship roster beyond those two. And oh, by the way, we don't even know what's in LeBron's future. We really do not know what the next step for LeBron is going to be. I can tell you that sources told me LeBron was okay with this. His camp was okay with this because Hurley could develop Bronny. That was a big thing here that had the potential to occur. And that's why a lot of the tea leaves were reading, there's real interest here. This has a real shot of happening. Look at the money potentially. But I think as time went on here, now you take a look at the money. $70 million, as a couple of people told me, not fully worth it. When you look at some of the unknowns here with the Lakers and some of the other NBA teams he could potentially look at here in the future.
That's why when we had you on the other week, I was just spitballing. I said, look at the Monty Williams deal for reference. Like, if that ended up being the offer, which Woj put out there, $70 million over 6 years, that's an offer that you could refuse when you're Dan Hurley and you're sitting at UConn, that's a blue blood, and you've won back-to-back national championships. Like, they said to Woj, oh, that's our guy. We've been targeting him all along. When you make that kind of offer and you're the Lakers and we know the coach's salary isn't impacted by the salary cap or anything like that, I actually think I know it's talked about, top 6 highest paid coach in the league. It's kind of an insulting offer to Dan Hurley, in my opinion.
Zach, I thought it was I really did think it was an insulting offer. And that's why I go back to what people that are plugged in the league were telling me. And oh, by the way, like, and I have an immense amount of respect for Woj.
Sure.
Immense. But he did come out and say right off the bat that the Lakers were putting together a package that was highly, highly lucrative. That this was going to be the most that they had ever compensated the coach. True as that might be here, that was not the expected avenue that anybody had thought going into this if he was going to become the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers.
So let me ask you this. What was your understanding on how everything went down today? Because the moment I saw, and I'll raise my hand, I'll be the first one to say it, when I left Friday, I thought he was going to take the Lakers job. That's what I thought. I think I said to you it was 85%. But today, when that press conference or the practice time gets reported, it's moved back from 12 to 2, as much as I love Hurley, I thought it would have been a really rotten move when you move everything back, everyone's waiting and guessing on what's going to happen, and then you tell your kids, hey, I'm not staying. So what's your understanding on how everything played out today?
Yeah, well, his wife, Andrea, and him, they showed up here shortly before that 2 o'clock practice. He wasn't on campus in the morning. He wasn't hanging around campus. It's my understanding, Zach, through people that I talked to at UConn, there are a wide variety of people that work with the program, that work within the program, that woke up this morning and did not know what was going to happen. And these are people that I trust. These are people that I have spent a lot of time with in the recent years. They did not know what was going to happen, what he was going to say. Now, Hurley is very calculated. And I said this from the start of this process. He knows exactly what he's doing. That's part of what makes him great. Like, honestly, Zach, I love the show. And he knows how to put a show on. And good for him, because we don't have enough of it in college basketball. We're all talking about college basketball on June 10th. That's never happened. In the time that I've talked with you, if I've come on your show this time of year, we're talking NBA draft. And it's good to see. It's good to be talking about it right now. And maybe we will talk draft in a week or two. But the point is, like, this is a situation here where he kept this tight to the vest. Mm-hmm. He kept this tight to the vest. And when we were throwing out percentages on Friday, nobody's throwing stuff off the wall. Those were informed things where he was meeting. Things were looking good. It's just the assurances, the financial capabilities now of Connecticut. They're going to have to piece things together here. They're a state school. They're in debt. They've got their own battles. The Northeast, the family roots, all of that. They were, again, if they weren't entertained and if they weren't into the idea, right, then they would not have gotten on a plane and flown to Los Angeles. But I came on your show Friday and said 75-25. 25 is not 0. 75 is not 100 either. And so I think as the weekend went on, Saturday night, I scaled this to 50-50 because I truly think that he contemplated it. I believe that yesterday, Sunday, after he went to Billy Joel on Saturday, took his mind off some things, might have had an instinct, but I think on Sunday he came with his family to a decision. His family matters. His wife, Andrea, his sons, Andrew and Dan Jr., his father, Bob Sr., his mother as well. All of these people have a say, have weight in this. And I think for all of them and for his situation, Zach, one thing you got to look at with Dan has been outspoken about some of the challenges he's gone through in life. Right? And he's an inspiration to people that don't talk about mental health, they've been afraid to talk about it. Dan has not been afraid to talk about those battles. Zach, just over 800 days ago, he lost to New Mexico State in an embarrassing loss in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Some people were calling for him, doing this, that. They were really criticizing him. He changed some things. He dug deep. He looked at life. He looked at the challenges. 2 years later, he's had one of the most remarkable rises in the history of college basketball. That happiness, that money, the convenience factor, doesn't have to get up and move everybody. His parents have lived in the same home for decades and decades.
And his
Not that
father
they
could have had
couldn't
a lot of
stayed there,
jobs too, and he stayed.
but they couldn't have. But they couldn't have gone. Not that they couldn't have stayed there, but it would have been harder to get out to L.A. every now and then. Situationally, family wise, the fact that Zach, he's got a blue blood in the palm of his hand now.
Yeah, and here's one more thing that I'll bring up to you, John Fanta, just from a coverage standpoint. And I thought, because, right, people are wondering what was the state of the Big East going to be all those years ago. And then we know what Villanova did, and we know what UConn has done. But I always say this about college coaches. That's what gets really the sport going. And we know the personalities that used to be in the Big East. But you look at the last 3-4 years, Shaka Smart goes to Marquette. Jay Wright retires. Sean Miller returns to Xavier. Thad Matta returns to Butler. The whole Ed Cooley thing with Providence and going to Georgetown. Patino coming into the Big East with St. John's. And now Dan Hurley turning down the Lakers. Man, I've never seen anything like this the last 3-4 years with all those storylines.
Zach, the Big East is on fire right now. It's got its most drama since the 80s and 90s. Dan Hurley and Rick Pitino are rivals. That's a good thing. UConn St. John's matters again. That's a good thing. And oh, by the way, this all comes while the Big East is in negotiations for a new television contract. Mm-hmm. You think Dan Hurley staying at UConn helps the causes, helps the dialogue? You bet it does. So him staying at Connecticut, UConn, I just wrote this for FoxSports.com, and I know I'm working for the company that works with the Big East on their TV primarily. But Connecticut is going to be on big broadcast TV every weekend, if not almost every weekend, through conference play. That matters too. Hurley's not lost. Like, we could talk about the ESPN. This is a whole separate thing, and how, they cut off the Big East in 2013 when the conference breakup happened. But the Fox platform for UConn matters because they get on big broadcast TV almost every weekend. More than any other program, really, I would say, in college basketball, with all those exposures. Hurley's going to be the king of that. He's going to be the king of that. He's going to be desired by any MTE. He's going to be desired by any TV partner. During a time where Jay Wright, Roy Williams, Coach K have said goodbye, somebody had to say hello and bet on college basketball. Now, of course, he's going to get paid. But Hurley's loyalty to the sport today is college basketball's biggest win in quite some time, especially when you consider how chaotic the sport is in the offseason.
Perfectly said. Last thing I'll ask you, John Fanta, is always great when he joins us. There's a lot of reasons why maybe he didn't take it, like we talked about. Right now you're out of blue blood and you have it humming and you won back-to-back national championships. The offer only being $70 million and it not being an offer you can't refuse. We talked about the control element as well. What do you think is the number one reason why Dan Hurley right now is not off to LA to go coach the Lakers?
He has total control at UConn, and there's zero guarantees you're going to have anything close to that in the NBA. It's not just the Lakers. It's just the style. And the man has pictures of John Wooden in his office. If he can say, myself and John Wooden are the only two coaches in men's college basketball history to win 3 consecutive national titles, which is impossible. UConn is number 2 in my preseason top 25. Zach, if he says that, start building the statue because it'll go up very soon.
He is John Fanta of Fox Sports. John, always appreciate your insight and your passion. Thank you for doing this again.
Zach, fun to talk with you at midnight, late at night during this process. This was a wild ride, my friend. It was a wild ride.
Yeah, it definitely was. There he is, the great John Fanta, where we had many conversations on and off the air about everything that was going on with Dan Hurley and the UConn Huskies. But great for the sport of college basketball that Dan Hurley is staying with the UConn Huskies. An unfortunate situation for the Lakers because now it may be J.J. Redick. Now it may be James Borrego. And even though there was questions about Dan Hurley, still, those two guys aren't Dan Hurley. And that's a problem for the Los Angeles Lakers. Coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network. So I asked the question to John Fanta because everyone is going to have their 2 cents and everyone's going to have their opinion on why Dan Hurley didn't take the job. And you can have many differentiating opinions, and there may be a little bit of truth in all those reasons why Dan Hurley didn't end up taking the job with the Los Angeles Lakers. But let me just lay them out to you real quickly. And here could be some of the scenarios. One, this could have been used as a move to get more money out of UConn. From the way it's been reported and what others have told me, and I didn't always think that this was the case. And then I put out a video, which was, I think, Thursday when I was leaving work. And and what I said in the video wasn't accurately portrayed in the tweet that I wrote, to be fair. And people thought like I was calling out UConn. No, all I was asking was, you had a guy that just won back-to-back national championships. Why hasn't his contract already been taken care of? And that was just a why question that I asked. It could have been on Hurley. It could have been on UConn. But then a few people reached out to me, and they told me what the UConn offer was to Dan Hurley, and it's a fair offer. But then you hear what John just said, where they're trying to make him the highest paid coach of college basketball. They would have to up that offer that they gave him. But the offer that they gave him made him would make him one of the highest paid coaches. Not but one of the highest paid coaches in college basketball. So did he maybe use the Lakers to expedite what was a long process in the contract negotiations? Possible. The other things, was he concerned about the control? Was he concerned about the leap from going to college to the pros? The other potential part of this scenario for Dan Hurley was, hey, the offer ended up being $70 million over 6 years. The Lakers are the desperate ones. Dan Hurley is not desperate. Dan Hurley has it made for him right now. Even though I think it's an easier lifestyle to coach the pros than it is college hoops, he's at a spot where he loves and he's very comfortable. So was it the Lakers' offer where they could say, hey, it makes him a top 6 highest paid coach in the NBA, but they could have made that offer even better? Was it the fact that he was going for a three-peat? So there's all these different scenarios that you can throw out there. And I wonder where most people are at right now as to their reasoning on why Dan Hurley is not the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. The family component of it as well has been thrown out there. So, Samter, let me start you off and just ask you this simple, well, it's not a simple question because there's many different potential answers here. In your opinion, why do you think Dan Hurley is not the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers?
I think his wife, plain and simple. His family did not want to leave. I think that...
I kind of want to book now Andrea Hurley in studio.
Every indication is he hates the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. His team is being decimated by the draft. They're not going to three-peat. I'm saying it right now. Mm-hmm. Like, they're a good team, but they're not going to three-peat. And if they do, it would be an amazing accomplishment.
Obviously, yeah.
Especially with all the guys that they're losing to the draft. I think it's his wife. And this whole idea, like, he wants to be close to his family. Bobby Hurley's in Arizona. You'll be close to your brother. You might not be closer to your father, but they, like you said, they're millionaires. They can go out there. So I think it's his wife. I think it's the wrong decision. I think it's clear that he hates the transfer portal. It's clear that he doesn't like NIL. Mm-hmm. It's clear that college basketball has become more of a grind. He's going to regret this because if they don't three-peat, then nothing else matters.
I don't think he could regret this. Like, if Dan Hurley in 2 years, let's say, doesn't win another national championship, and let's say, I don't know, Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks end up parting ways, he could be the coach of the Knicks in a second. Let's say the Boston Celtics, Joe Mazzulla is fed up in 4 or 5 years. And I know Mazzulla's about to win a championship, so it's probably not a great example. But there will be many jobs that come calling if the NBA is something that he is interested in, which he's talked about before. Down the road, he is. But that's interesting. You think it's his wife and the family component of it. Chris Hess, let me ask you this. Same question. What's the number one reason why you think Dan Hurley is not the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers?
I think it's something that John mentioned on the very back end of the closer of the conversation, When you have that full control of a program, you can make it your own, and you have full say and full authority over it. You're not an whatever you want to call it, authoritarian, whatever. But you have full control of what's in front of you. You dictate how things go. In the NBA, you can't do that because if you try to run it your way, it's a players' league. Yeah. And they're going to oust you, and it's going to be a whole situation, and I don't think he wants to deal with that.
So you think it's a control. Okay, CeeLo? CeeLo always is an astute observer. Crystal Presti, I always trust his sports opinions, and I think he usually gives you a very level-headed take, unlike some of these hot take hacks and all these bloviating jackass talk show hosts like maybe yours truly. But CeeLo, what's the number one reason in your opinion after you hear everyone give their 2 cents on this matter the last few hours why Dan Hurley's not the coach of the Lakers?
I think probably finances. I think he went out west and heard what the Lakers had to say and what they had to offer, and I think it probably would have been had to have been an offer that he was absolutely blown away by to leave his current situation. And I'm sure, and it's already been referred to in the write-ups today, that he and UConn are working on some sort of extension and a pay raise. So from that standpoint, he'll probably end up closer to where the Laker offer was to stay where he is and hunt that three-peat in a familiar setting.
Yeah, I've been told, I don't want to reveal the number. It may be out there, but I was told the ballpark range, I'll guess, of what the offer was made to him, more than a few weeks ago.
From UConn.
Yeah. Now, let me just say, it's not per year what Kentucky reportedly offered him. I saw Forbes said it was like 11-something million. I think it's that the Lakers only offered him $11.6 million a year.
Yeah.
Like $70 million over 6 years. They said to Woj, that's our top target, right? Dan Hurley is our top target. He's the guy. If that's the case, how is that contract not 90, 95, 100 million? If they would have given him 100 million over 6 years, I think he's the coach of the Lakers.
Hard to turn that down, yeah.
Monty Williams, who's a good coach, he's not going to win jack with the Pistons, but did a very good job with the Suns, makes $13-something million a year. That's what the offer should have been here by the Los Angeles Lakers if you were really trying to go out there and get your guy. So I think it's a Lakers offer wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, and which is odd because this was sort of like a back channel thing that was going on, right? We didn't hear Hurley's name. You heard J.J. Redick. You heard James Borrego. And then all of a sudden it's, here comes Dan Hurley. And you're figuring, he's going to go out there and they're going to make him an offer he can't refuse. And that's not really the way it went down based on what we're hearing and what the numbers say.
Now, and Fanta kind of alluded to it, and the politicians have even said, they want to make him the highest paid coach in college basketball. What that offer was a little while ago, I would think after the Laker opportunity saying no to the Lakers and Kentucky, it's going to augment even more, and we'll see how swiftly this does get taken care of, because that was my thing from the jump, and I kind of asked it on Thursday, and some people got annoyed to me because they thought I was taking a shot at UConn. It wasn't. It was just me asking a question. This guy just won back-to-back national championships. How wasn't this contract already taken care of? And there was an offer out there. He just never ended up putting the pen to paper.
Yeah, the offer was out there, but perhaps he thought there was a little bit more to be gained. And here come the Lakers. And the next thing you know, I'm sure UConn will be increasing that initial offer.
Yeah, and I'm sure that is the way that it's probably going to end up playing out. All righty. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take our final break of the day. When we come on back, Santer's got some questions for me. I'll hopefully have some answers for him. We'll do a little onside offset. Oh, by the way, CeeLo. I should have asked you about this. You live in Jersey, right?
I do.
We could talk more off the air, but I am forming a charity kickball team.
Oh, yeah?
To play in Dion Dawkins' charity kickball tournament in New Jersey at the end of the month. We have a few spots available. We could question some people that are on the team's athletic ability. You would not be one of them, being a stud former college baseball player. Is that right?
I would say I'm in if the dates align. I don't think I've played kickball since middle school, but
I haven't played kickball since the 5th grade.
I always enjoyed it when I did get a chance to do it back in the day.
So we have 12 people that are going to end up being a part of this team from the company. If
That's
I set
awesome.
the over-under, well, the team limit is also 12.
Okay.
But if I set the over-under of 1.5 injuries.
Oh, I'll take the over.
Right?
Without even blinking an eye. And if I lose, I'd take my money. But I felt good about which side of that I was on.
I just hope it's like a stub toe or someone sliding into a base and they fracture a pinky.
No,
I don't want any Achilles or ACLs.
Hammy, a quad. Someone opens it up for a sprint that hasn't done that in quite some time, they could go down
I'm
easy.
very concerned about Perloff because Perloff carries himself like he's this big athlete, plays a bunch of basketball. That dude walks around this office with a lot of tape, and it seems like he gets hurt a lot.
I feel like he could snap in half at any moment.
Yeah.
Like brittle.
Yeah. Hickey's not participating, but like
Not participating.
Yeah, it's lame.
What else has he got going on?
He probably got to gel his hair or something
Come
like
on.
that. But Hickey, like, he was once competitively swimming against his friends. He's basically drunk at a bachelor party. He, like, fractured his finger or something like that.
Swimming?
Yeah, he slammed it on the concrete and he fractured his finger. So
Definitely
I think
sounds alcohol-induced.
it shows you how pathetic the athletic state is of our squad.
Well,
I think
that's-
CeeLo would bring a little toughness and a little extra juice to the squad.
Oh, I'll bring toughness and juice. There's no doubt about that.
You'll probably take out the first baseman, too.
I might. Or
Just-
my own teammate.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding.
you're a Jet guy, though.
I covered the Jets, but I come from a Giants family. I'm a
okay.
Giants fan.
Because
yes.
my concern was, Deion Dawkins being a close
No.
personal friend, you maybe go like, try to take him out or something.
No,
and try to help the
that's
Jets
not
out
how
this
I
season.
roll. No way. No
so
way.
clean player, Christian
Yeah,
Presti.
definitely.
All right, let's get a clean update with CeeLo.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And we got the official statement from still UConn men's head coach Dan Hurley a short time ago after turning down that reported offer from the Lakers. Quote, "I'm humbled by this entire experience. At the end of the day, I'm extremely proud of the championship culture we have built at Connecticut. We met as a team before today's workout, and our focus right now is on getting better this summer and connecting as a team as we continue to pursue championships." So he opts to remain in the college ranks, and he will hunt a third consecutive national title with the Huskies. More coaching news. Mike Tomlin, now the NFL's longest tenured coach, gets himself a 3-year extension from the Steelers, carrying through the 2027 season. Stanley Cup Final, game number 2 coming up tonight. Edmonton with a 3-0 loss in Saturday night's opener. On top of that, Oilers head coach Chris Knobloch acknowledges.
We know that Florida probably, that wasn't their best game. Anticipate them to be much better the next one. I think they probably caught it off guard. Just you guys talking about how good they were and we didn't have a chance in this series.
And Sergei Popovsky, a big reason why Florida was able to take that opener in shutout fashion. Face-off tonight will begin shortly after 8 Eastern. I'm Chris Lopresti.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network. That's it. Play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We are wrapping up shop on this Monday. It's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. We have Bill in Boston who says, Zach, are you happy that Dan Hurley said no to the Los Angeles Lakers? You can submit a question by tweeting at INF SportsCenter at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Yeah, I'm happy because it would have been fun to have covered it and see what would have happened with him going to the NBA. But it's great for college basketball, and it's great for UConn that Dan Hurley's staying. So I'm not upset that he didn't take the job with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I do find it very funny to see what is going to transpire now on who the Lakers hire. Because I hope it's James Borrego. I really do. Oh, it would be such a humbling, fun moment for J.J. Redick, knowing that Hurley was the guy, and then people thought he was the guy, and then we end up hiring James Borrego. But whoever the hire is going to be, whether it's Borrego or Redick, it is not going to be met with a positive reaction from Lakers fans. Nor should it be. Because you were told, hey, we're pursuing Hurley. We want Hurley to be the guy. Well, if you offered Dan Hurley $100 million and he turns you down, I could live with that. Even if you offered him $90 million and he turns you down, I could live with that. But when you only offered him $70 million over 6 years, it left me saying, the Lakers said they were all in, but they weren't really all in. The Lakers kind of like the Cowboys. They told you this offseason, hey, we're going to be all in. And Skip Bayless says, all in, pause. Need a comma. My ass. Lakers said they were all in on Dan Hurley. The offer, though, that's truly $70 million over 6 years, not really all in on Dan Hurley. They could have significantly made him a better offer, and they didn't. All righty. Sam's got some questions. I'll give you some answers. Let's go to Onside, Offside to end this show on a Monday. Chris Hess, hit it!
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
All righty, Samter, what do we got cooking today?
Well, the Brownies got a scare this weekend. It's Deshaun Watson was hurt in David Njoku's celebrity softball game after colliding with teammate Zaire Mitchell-Payton.
Is that right?
Yeah, he flipped in the air and landed on his surgically repaired shoulder. Now, Watson got right up. He was talking and playing with the fans, and he later told our friend Mary Kay Cabot that he was good and totally was fine, but still a very scary situation if you're the Browns. Now, onside, offside, we hear a lot about players getting hurt doing other things other than football. Teams should prohibit all players from participating in any other competitive sport during the offseason.
So I'm going to say offside with one caveat. When I first read this question, I thought to myself, yeah, they should prohibit players from participating in any other competitive sport during the offseason. Like, I didn't read the buildup. I just read the question. So you're telling me, like, a player wants to go surfing or a player wants to go play basketball on their own. Like, I'm not necessarily thrilled with that, with how much money that they pay these players to be ready for football. But this is where I can't say that you should be able to prohibit someone when it's for good. He got hurt in David Njoku's celebrity softball game. That makes me think there was a charity component to this, and this was a charity softball game. So assuming that's true, which I bet you it is, I don't think that's something the Browns can really do. Tell Deshaun Watson you can't play at a charity softball game. Like a lot of these players have charity softball games. So that's where I end up saying offside, Sam.
Now, after much speculation, Giants tight end Darren Waller, in fact, did tell the team that he was going to retire. Before getting hurt in 2021, the 31-year-old Waller had back-to-back monster seasons with over 90 catches and 1,100 yards for the Raiders. Now, onside, offside, I lost my voice again.
Tough for you to do Raiders.
The Raiders. There you go. That's a little bit better.
When you have the voice problem.
I know. It's getting better, though.
Come on, scratch it.
Now, if he did stay healthy, you believe Waller would have been the best tight end in the NFL.
Oh, offside. Tremendous talent, but he's not Kelce just for starters. Like, if we just look at Travis Kelce, that's the best tight end in the NFL. He's not Travis Kelce. So that's where I go offside on that one.
Paul George is one of the biggest names in this year's free agency class, with some linking him to the Lakers, Sixers, and maybe even a return to Indiana. However,
I feel like
Mark
Paul
Stein,
George has been linked to the Lakers for my entire life.
I know. Eventually, he's going to end up like him and DeMar DeRozan have been to the Lakers every single year.
When Paul George is 43, he'll finally go to the Lakers. Maybe Dan Hurley will finally go there, too.
And LeBron will still be on the team, too. However, Mark Stein reports
it'll be Bronny, not LeBron.
Mark Stein reports the Magic are now a potential suitor for the 9-time All-Star. Onside, offside, George would have a better chance winning a title in Orlando with the likes of Paolo Banchero than he would with his current team, the Clippers.
Onsides, because the Clippers are never healthy. They're never healthy. Every year, Kawhi Leonard, who is a great postseason player when healthy, he's won 2 Finals MVPs. But every year now, it seems like an injury happens, he plays one game, then you don't see him the rest of the postseason. So, yeah, I would give him a better chance of the younger team in Orlando than in L.A. with the Clippers.
Now, the Pistons have the worst record in the NBA for the second straight season and haven't won more than 23 games in any of the past 5 seasons. However, despite their struggles, The Athletic reports the team is expected to give former number 1 overall pick Cade Cunningham a max rookie extension this summer after he averaged nearly 23 points and 8 assists this year. Onside, offside, Cade Cunningham can still develop into a star NBA player.
Yeah, onsides. He's a good player. That team just stinks. You know, is he a number 1 pick where you're like, oh, that's going to be someone that's a a top 5 player in the league? No, but he averaged 22.7 points per game this past year, and he was top 10 in the league in assists with 7.5 a game. So, yeah, I still think he could develop into being a star player. Is he going to be a top 5 player in the league? Probably not. But I still think he could be a star in the NBA, so I will go onsides. Now, I'll ask you a question here at the end. Onside or offside? Michael Samter tonight will be drinking a cup of tea with honey in it.
Cup of tea, no. I've been drinking a ton of water.
Whiskey?
A little bit of whiskey with honey in it.
You got it? I'm telling you.
A little bit of whiskey, a little bit of honey, a lot of water.
Bad job out of you. You got to have a few cups of tea tonight and put a lot of honey. That will help your voice out in a big way. Are you a cough drop guy, just wondering?
Yes, Cepacals. All over the Cepacals.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but it's getting a lot better. I think it was just moving into a new place, a very woodsy area. No, not even stress.
Are you stressed?
I don't think the stress was before the move. Now this is kind of like, now there's the calm after the storm. This is more, I think, like different pollens, different trees, different things that like is just kind of affecting me in a different way. My body will get used to it. I'll be fine.
We may have to give you a load management day. You know, you weren't here for 3 weeks and you come back. I just think you're not used to the grind anymore.
You're going to love it. It means I have to talk less. You're going to love it.
That's a good point. Maybe I should shut up. We're running out of time anyway. Chris S., thank you. Michael Samter, thank you. Antoine Walker, thank you. John Fanta, thank you. And thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this edition of the Zach Gelb Show. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Peace!
You're in a 5-minute break.